Okay, so you probably know that I'm usually excited for what Xiaomi is bringing every single year. After all, their collaboration with Leica has improved their smartphone cameras year after year in both hardware and software. Sure, that means their highest-end phones tend to be really packed and thus really big, but the smaller variants are also a thing. And it's the smaller smartphone that we're focusing a Leica lens on in this video. A slimmer, smaller design that doesn't necessarily mean that we're missing out on all that Xiaomi is offering in their new lineup. So let's get into it because it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is the Xiaomi 14, day one. As this is a day one video, we usually get into the unboxing first, but since I got this phone literally as I was arriving in Barcelona for MWC and for Xiaomi's launch event, I've only had about a day with the phone anyway. Another camera test here for you. A lot of the photos and videos you're seeing in this video are going to be on the Xiaomi 14. I said that a little bit weird, but whatever. We're getting started with the day and it's bus time. I only had so much time before I got started with this video to throw a SIM card in this phone and get started with what was actually a pretty packed schedule. Quite a few of my colleagues and peers already got their hands on the green edition, the jade green edition that is a glossy material on the backing, but I got the black one here and it is a matted material, which I definitely appreciate. Black doesn't pop on camera quite as well, but I can't say no to the matted material. The case though is appreciated because smartphone boxes are getting more and more anemic these days, and it's also appreciated because even if I didn't like the color, at least I have a full gray case to cover it all up. Now again, I have the matted black version and it does do a good job so far of repelling fingerprints, even though I've been constantly gripping the phone all day with ease. There's just something so refreshing about having a smaller device. We talk about multitasking all the time on smartphones due to the performance and everything we can do on the larger screens, but multitasking can also mean having the phone in one hand and doing something else in the other. This is the kind of multitasking that I feel like I can't do as often with a bunch of other phones that are a lot bigger than this. Honestly, I think it's a selling point that's worth considering when you're looking at the base models of any smartphone lineup. All right, so as it turns out, we spent the first few hours of the day learning about these devices. Now, we have the Xiaomi 14, but obviously around this time, we're also going to have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra as part of the announcements. That phone I'm super excited for, but there are some features that are on the Ultra that have made it to the 14. So while I'm going through some of the footage of this actual briefing and the sort of area that they created for us to test out some of these items and features, I'm going to go ahead and talk through some of my favorite features so far with the Xiaomi 14. I said features a lot. I just had a coffee. The Xiaomi 14 keeps its style simplistically elegant. That's a term I haven't used in a while. And that style is across all the colorways, but especially in how the camera package sits neatly in the corner. If you ever look at the Ultra variants and you think that those are like a little too much, well, this is the alternative and it might work better for you. There's a slight curve on the backing that contrasts with the flat display, itself a 6.36-inch AMOLED that pumps out up to 3000 nits of peak brightness and proper vivid colors. It's a good display and definitely not too small to enjoy anything from videos to games. Speaking of games, it should be no surprise that Xiaomi puts the latest and greatest of processors in their smartphones, and the Xiaomi 14 is no exception. What we have here is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is more than enough for all of the tasks that you might do on the daily and all of the games that I definitely play, like Marvel Snap. I'll round out the look at the hardware with the 4610 mAh battery, which I am keeping an eye on throughout this day one video. Fans of fast charging are taken care of here with the 90-watt charging, which, slight spoiler alert, I did have to use right before dinner on this day one, but I'll get more into why a little bit later. It's been a little bit. I know I haven't exactly done a full long-form video in a little while, but along with that, I haven't done a tea break in a bit, so why don't we take a breather for a second and go ahead and do that. There are a lot of videos that are coming out, not just today, but for the rest of the week during Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, so allow me to be the person to remind you to just take a breather. All the tech videos are still going to be there, and we can just reflect a little bit and just take a breath. Today's tea break is powered by matcha, specifically Everyday Dose matcha, which also comes with some mushrooms in it, like lion's mane mushroom. And speaking of brain boosts, I heard a really great quote not too long ago from Hank Green, who's a YouTuber, and he said, "If it's in my head, it doesn't exist," which actually makes a lot of sense because we tend to overthink a lot of things and we might get overwhelmed by all of the tasks or the things that we have to do. And since they're all in our head and they're just inundating us, we end up not doing a whole lot because we're overwhelmed. So maybe the thing I'll say right now, because I needed to do it myself, is if it's in my head and it doesn't exist because of that, get it out of my head and maybe maybe write it down, make a list. That's literally what I had to do coming to Mobile World Congress. I literally made a list of all of the things that I needed to bring, and it was effective, although I will admit it wasn't perfect because there are a few items that I did not put on the list that I ended up forgetting. But at the very least, I had the peace of mind of knowing the essentials were definitely here with me in Barcelona. So let this be your reminder to take a moment and maybe write down or make tangible the thoughts that are in your head, whether they are to-do lists or just journaling in general. If it's in your head, it probably doesn't exist, so yeah, make it exist. And to end this video, I'm just gonna go ahead and ask you, because it's been a while, what's going on, everybody? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for kicking it with me during this tea break, because I hope you come for the tech, but you stay for the tea. All right, let's get back to the Xiaomi 14. As you can see, Xiaomi really wanted to showcase everything they brought to MWC and a bit beyond it, as the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is also on the horizon. One of the demonstrations that they had in that whole showcase was the Xiaomi 14 Ultra actually shooting in log format so that you have full control over the footage that you record. If you're at all into video content creation, this was going to be exciting because they actually had a professional colorist there to show off the workflow going from log footage to the final result. But the other thing I should mention, and what's really exciting, is that the Xiaomi 14, the base model, can also record in log. It's only available through the main lens. I do wish I could use it on all the lenses, but we're taking a step in the right direction still. Me making the matcha tea latte earlier was actually all done in log format, then graded in DaVinci Resolve. I've only recently got into log format recording, and it's mainly because the feature is showing up in a very small number of smartphones. Well, one in particular. But the fact that we are getting it on the Xiaomi 14 lineup now just shows that, well, they're really trying to make a creator's tool out of their smartphone. I do want to make sure I give a little bit more information on the other Xiaomi products being announced since we got those demonstrations. The 14 Ultra is looking like an insane camera set with the Sony Leica sensor. Yeah, it's apparently pronounced Leica, or not Leica, which is what I've been saying over the last year or so. Anyway, that's the main sensor, and the IMX858 rounds out the rest of the cameras, the ultra wide and both telephotos. We're talking massive cameras with wide apertures that are trying to close the gap between the photo and the video quality and shooting experience. The main lens even has a variable stepless aperture that gets as wide as f1.6. I'll get more into the Ultra once I get my hands on a review unit, and I'll also talk more about the Xiaomi watch that was introduced as well during the announcements. It comes with that interchangeable bezel, so you know black and yellow will get on my wrist soon for sure. Alright, back to the Xiaomi 14 and mainly its cameras. Obviously this is a day one video, so it's not really a real-world camera test, but you've been seeing a lot of samples coming from the phone already, so let me know what you think of everything you're seeing in the comments downstairs. It's no surprise that everything is working really smoothly, and so far, even though it's about the midpoint of the day, I'm still a little bit above 50% battery. So with the smaller handling and the performance underneath the hood, seriously, this has been a really good companion to have while running around Barcelona today. And we are running around even more because right behind me is the National Art Museum, and right in front of us, if you can hear it in the background, is, oh, well, it looks like we're going. Right in front of us, there's a guitar player who's just really rocking it right now. But anyway, now that we're at an actual place to be able to test out the cameras of the Xiaomi 14, it's time for a bit of a photo walk and more camera samples in this day one test. The cameras on here start with a great main sensor that uses the Xiaomi and Leica developed Light Fusion 900, along with more conventional ultra-wide and telephoto lenses. Well, I say conventional, but Xiaomi actually took a step from their Pro models last year and put it into the base model this year. This telephoto is the floating telephoto lens from the Xiaomi 13 Pro. That means the telephoto can actually get pretty close to subjects, which is useful when you want to capture the finer details of any subject. The lens then floats back into a different position when it's going to be used as a proper portrait lens. Let me go ahead and give you some camera samples for a little while, and for the sake of sharing settings, everything that you're seeing here was shot in the Leica Vibrant profile that is built into the camera app as opposed to the alternative Leica Natural. Thing I haven't really talked about on the Xiaomi 14 that I really appreciate, 4K on the front, and not just 4K, but there is actually 4K 60, so being able to talk a little bit about the phone to the phone is a little bit easier because of that. While HDR shooting in the main photo and video modes is helpful in the more challenging situations, I actually tend to live in the Pro mode because of that EV slider. Most of the time you'll get better results just dialing things down a little bit, maybe to around negative 0.05 exposure compensation or EV. My only real gripe so far with the camera is that the telephoto seems to be tuned a little bit differently from the others. Perhaps having a different main sensor is just making things a little bit disjointed here. When switching from the main sensor to the telephoto, I can see a shift in the white balance, which can be a little jarring. All the more reason to use Pro mode when needed.
So the first section, as you can tell, is old art or medieval art, but a lot of it is actually not just art that's like hung on the wall or anything, but recreated murals that were from churches in the northern part of Catalonia. But yeah, this first part of the museum that we're going through is all Catalan art, all old and from very historical places.
High quality stills can be easily taken with the Xiaomi 14, and I have to give Xiaomi credit, as I usually do, for prioritizing hardware and glass to achieve it. I know software and AI is all the rage these days, and some companies are just leaning into all of that to make up for any, let's say, deficiencies in photo and video taking. But Xiaomi has always been all about the hardware. Don't get me wrong, they're going to have some AI processing as well. That's just going to be a thing we see everywhere. But if you also upgrade the hardware, well, the gains could be even more substantial. I think more companies should look at this kind of model in order to really further the camera experience. Other parts of the camera I wanted to share include the portrait mode, which really leans into the Leica collab. Different lenses are available for different focal lengths and looks, but I do wish that the different focal lengths were accessible without the crazy swirly bokeh or the way too soft focus effects. The standard portrait mode is around 60mm apparently, but I want to do standard at 75 or 90. And the final thing I'll share for now is the movie mode. Movie mode always opted for a tighter, more cinematic aspect ratio, but it also always shot below 4K resolution. Now it's really all about face recognition, because any head in the shot is going to be focused on as it goes in and out of the frame. It can jump a little, but tapping on subjects is still possible. I like it, as it does do focus pulls pretty effectively, but I do wish it would shoot at higher resolutions.
You know, I have to admit, even though the news today is probably going to be centered around the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, the Xiaomi 14 is really no slouch, and it is refreshing to have the smaller version of a flagship phone and just be able to use it nimbly and easily throughout any scenario. Like right now, I'm like filming myself, but I can easily take this out of my pocket and do some B-roll shots and even shoot video and photo of anything else using the phone. So it's just easy and really convenient to have a smaller phone, but it's not like Xiaomi left all of the craziest features for the Ultra. There are a ton of really awesome premium features on that premium device, but you still get a really good main sensor. You still get log recording on here. You also still get the floating telephoto, so to get a little bit of those telemacro shots, and all of the performance is still here on a phone that is just a little bit easier to use. So it's not as if you should write off the smallest versions of the phone, whether it's the Xiaomi 14 series or any other series. I gotta say, I've only had this for the day so far, but I'm really enjoying my time with it so far.
Okay, by the time we were done with all of the tours and with all of the bus riding, it was about 5 p.m., got back to the room, and I had about 20% left on this phone, which wasn't too much of a surprise for me considering, well, I was using the camera and log recording a lot during the actual tours. Luckily, I needed a nap, and during that time, the 90-watt charger was going to keep me covered. Sure enough, about half an hour later, the phone was back to full power. I, on the other hand, ended up sleeping for more than that half hour. I got up, had a nice kebab with the folks that are here, and that's pretty much it for the day one video. And so, there you have it, day one with the Xiaomi 14. I always look forward to what Xiaomi has to offer every year, and it's usually because of the cameras. Normally I'd get right into the Ultra variant, but this year the base 14 made its way to me first. I'm actually happy that happened because I got a look into how Xiaomi is sort of proliferating their advancements across not just the Ultra lineup, but also to the base models, and I think it makes for a really compelling package. This might have resulted in one of the most full-featured, powerful, and capable base model smartphones that I've used recently. If the camera kitchen sink that is the Xiaomi 14 Ultra wasn't a thing, this phone would be a top contender to call my pocket home. But we'll see how the Ultra turns out and how the 14 continues to run in the coming days. In this video, I didn't even talk about the Xiaomi flavor of Android, which is HyperOS. There's a lot of news that's coming out about that, especially since the ecosystem is growing and, let's say, moving. But it is still just a good Android iteration. I just used it like any other smartphone without getting too far into the special features, and the Xiaomi 14 did all of those things perfectly fine. We'll definitely dive more into future videos, so for now, I'm gonna go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for kicking it with me today. I know it's been a while since I've done a long video like this, so thank you, seriously, for hanging out with me today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and Enjoy your tea, everybody.